Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle D'Souza Gill, and I am hosting Dinesh's podcast today. He will be back next time, so make sure to stay tuned today. We have a very interesting podcast to get to. If you're a regular Dinesh D'Souza listener, you may have heard me on here before. I'm frequently busy being a mom to my daughter, as well as supporting my husband's campaign for U.S. Congress, where we live in North Texas. I always love coming on the show, so the best way you can find me, stay in touch with me, is to find me on Facebook, Instagram, Truth Social, Rumble, X. I'm at Danielle D'Souza Gill. Beware if you follow me on there. I do post often on Facebook, so I will be blowing up your newsfeed, but it's all things you need to know. Well, we have a lot of content we need to get to today. We're going to be talking all about the disaster from Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. We're going to be talking about the government's complicit role, the lack of action. We're going to be going into how this is going to affect the election. North Carolina is a swing state, and we expect it to go for President Trump, but a lot of the area that has been affected is Trump country, and there's also a humanitarian crisis there. So we're going to speak to Graham Allen about his findings in visiting the site of the hurricane and the aftermath of it. We're also going to speak to Pat Harrigan, the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress from North Carolina's 10th Congressional District, as well as Addison McDowell, the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress from North Carolina's 6th Congressional District. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Something really stood out after Donald Trump's first assassination attempt. It was the first time since he originally announced his candidacy in 2015 that the media treatment towards him was at least generally impartial. After years of constantly hyperventilating over his every word or deed, it seemed the media had reached a limit with its anti-Trump vitriol, even if only for a moment. Trump, it seems, can't do anything right but survive being hit with a bullet. That was a milestone in the relationship between the media and Trump. It set a standard that is sadly fading for them, even after the second failed assassination attempt. But I believe most of the country found the change of rhetoric refreshing and enlightening. It became abundantly clear to everyone, save the media, that more than 90% of Trump's coverage is absurdly partisan. And more importantly, we realized afresh how ludicrous and wrong it is. So what changed? Did they finally grow hearts in the back rooms of CNN and MSNBC? I don't think so. On most days, the standard media narrative remains orange man bad. Yet for a brief moment, we were treated to a glimmer of the sanity the media normally keeps under wraps when discussing politics. I believe what happened is that the story of the failed assassination attempt is one where the facts asserted themselves in such a way as to resist the normal process of manipulation. In other words, the media couldn't spin it to their purposes because the American people saw it. They saw what happened. They saw Trump triumphant. They saw Trump raise his fist in the sky. They saw what happened. They saw him say, fight, fight, fight. The facts were too plain and the outcome too epic. A great man was almost killed. He was shot. And yet he met the attack with courage and defiance. The story could not be spun any other way. The truth was so powerful. It couldn't be hidden by lies. There are, in fact, unspinnable stories. Stories where an event stands on its own. The fact alone makes it what it stands for. Any attempt to spin it backfires. In other words, sometimes the circumstances of the story assert themselves almost as if the story itself were somehow aware. A living story, so to speak. We track media narratives when they're largely untrue and require debunking, especially when concerning anything having to do with Donald Trump, conservatives, or Republicans. The news stories tend to be slanted or outright falsehoods, so we have to track them. Just ask any AI chatbot, which stories about Donald Trump turned out to be untrue, and you will get a mile-long list. Still, seeing through a narrative lens is natural. Stories are how we understand the world around us. Events are complicated, so we need a narrative. It's impossible and even unnecessary to process all the facts, causes, and effects as if they're separate little cogs. So we use narratives to simplify things. Mankind has long relied on the power of stories as a tool for making sense of the world. That process of sense-making has been hacked by the hegemonic corporatist behemoth we call the mainstream media. The media, with its univocal, monolithic responses to events, constructs false narratives to convince us not to believe our lying eyes. COVID will kill us all. Vaccine passports should be legally mandated. January 6th was an insurrection. Orange man bad. The 2020 election was the most secure election in history. Nothing is wrong with Joe Biden. He is sharp as a tack. Kamala Harris is a savior whose election as president is inevitable. These statements are not facts. They are purely statements based on liberals' desire. The media's desire. The stories that they are trying to peddle, the narratives they're trying to sow for us to believe. They see themselves as enlightened puppet masters, and the rest of us as their puppets, or people who are there to watch their show. With their manipulative narratives, the media tries to lead us to a future outcome by controlling how we even react to events. I'm not saying anything far-fetched here. Note one of the biggest takeaways from the vice presidential debate, where the overwhelming surprise was how normal J.D. Vance was compared to how the media had been portraying him, which was as weird. This is one of many examples of a time when the media has been caught red-handed, hacking perceptions with their biased stories. What is the purpose of all of this manipulative lying? What is this future they are trying to lead us towards? Is it some gleaming utopia where all hurts are healed and harmony reigns supreme? Are we the people really building the house of love, as Bon Jovi crooned in his recent song supporting Kamala Harris? Hardly. We're seeing more and more of the left's undiscovered country day by day, and it is definitely not a house of love. Theirs is a future where the Bill of Rights no longer exists, where the Constitution is thrown in the trash can. It's a stumbling block. It's a future where China's social credit system is implemented here, coast to coast. A future where facial recognition cameras on every corner track our movements. Where everyone is forced to drive electric vehicles so the government can remotely decide where and when you can go somewhere. A future where our children are brainwashed, alienated from their parents and from their country and their religion. A future where children are even confused about their own bodies. A future where they tell us we can or can't eat and what we can't afford. A future where we have to watch helplessly as our national legacy is divided piecemeal among random strangers who don't even live here and have never paid into our system yet are reaping the benefits. Meanwhile, we Americans suffer without access to any of the services we pay for with our taxes, our military service, and hard work. Access is being cut off by the very government that is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, to quote a famous Republican. The devastation wrought by the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, where people have died from lack of water, food, power outages for days after the hurricane made landfall, was certainly not helped by the delayed and too little government response. In many cases, these were avoidable tragedies. Illegal immigrants get free flights and housing by the thousands, but the White House couldn't lift a finger for days to save whole families of Americans isolated in the mountains and hollers after a predicted storm came ashore. Imagine if the storm victims had been flown to sanctuary cities and put up in hotels like illegal immigrants are. Think of all the lives that could have been saved. It's more than the fact that this was an avoidable tragedy that turns the stomach. Those who perished join an ever-growing list of martyrs as we struggle against unelected government officials who are brutally indifferent to the plight of their fellow Americans. Those who died while they waited for help that never came join hundreds of political dissidents currently jailed for protesting. They join hundreds of citizens who have been the victims of criminal illegal crimes, and the 13 U.S. service members who died in August of 2021 during the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And that's all part of the leftist plan for our future, in case you haven't noticed. The left and their media cheerleaders see the current state of things and not only think it's all good, they desire more of the same. When asked by The View co-host Sunny Hostin, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years? Harris responded, "There is not a thing that comes to my mind." And then both Heath and Harris chuckled warmly while smiling widely at each other. And if they succeed, that's it. Their stated hope is that the Constitution will be over and done with. They hope America submits to a state-run one-party system, as China has done. And when that happens, Europe will become like China, they hope. Central and South America will also become like China, and so on. Leftist politicians inform us we will have a completely subdued global populace at the mercy of a techno-autocratic elite. And moreover, we're supposed to be happy. But I, for one, believe that America will not fail this test, the test of the upcoming election. This is still a land forged in freedom and steeped in a love for liberty. We are still a nation of hard workers, innovators, and pathfinders. We settled the frontier and set out for new places to explore. For instance, The Guardian reports, Elon Musk's SpaceX cleared an important milestone by catching the massive booster stage from its Starship rocket and a pair of robotic arms as it fell back to the company's launch pad in southern Texas. From the depths of the oceans to the cold reaches of space, America is the home of the trailblazers of mankind. Our enemies lust after our innovations and rip off our IP because their societies are incapable of nurturing the minds and supplying the material we use to make our advancements. Advancements in computing, energy, nanotechnology, advancements that have and will continue to reshape the world. With the blessings of abundance, our farmers produce food enough to feed whole nations. No government worker needs to stand outside those farmhouses to tell those families to get to work in the morning. Like all Americans, they rise on their own. And now it is our moment to rise together in the Republican resistance against the globalists and their compliant communist allies. We join the bodegas of Brooklyn and the tech innovators in Silicon Valley in support of Donald Trump. From the inner city, single parents who are struggling, to people who are involved in, suburban homes who are facing fentanyl crises, we see that all of these people are starting to wake up and support Donald Trump, even if they are not traditionally a Trump voter. From CEOs of sane companies to small business owners, from the disenfranchised to the deplatformed on social media, we're with Elon Musk standing tall with Donald Trump at the very site of the first assassination attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. Speaking at the rally in Butler, Musk warned that if the Harris-Walz ticket is successful, it may be the end for many of the freedoms we enjoy as Americans. This is not hyperbole, as both Harris and Walz have said they seek to fundamentally transform many of our cherished institutions from the Supreme Court to the Electoral College. Musk told the cheering crowd, "As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I am dark MAGA." While I do believe there is still cause for optimism, it is also the case that America is through with this game the Democrats are playing. Donald Trump has united a group of unlikely allies from all over the country who are standing shoulder to shoulder, now finally seeing clearly the craziness before us. There's a reason why all the lawfare, the fake polls, exploding head pundits, all of that is backfiring on the left. The true stories of real Americans are finally asserting themselves. The media attempts to paint President Trump as the villain, but they don't control the story anymore. And so they only add to the epic nature of his tale. Far from transforming him into a villain, the media's attacks on Trump just make him seem like more of a hero than ever. This story is alive. It resists their attempts to control it. The facts are starkly indisputable. We all have a role to play in this story. With our hard work, outreach, our votes, we can write the next chapter. When Trump stands with his face bloodied, yelling, "Fight, fight, fight," we know that we are part of something greater than a mere 2-minute broadcast. This is our story of resistance, of struggle, and of triumph. And it's the story that will shape our country for generations. We are almost at the finish line. As a story asserts itself over these narratives, the media flails about like a mad scientist in a cartoon, pulling random levers, pushing random buttons in the vain hopes that something will work to stop the momentum. That also sounds a lot like Biden, to be honest. You see the desperation in their faces growing by the day. To them, I say, your vile glamours no longer enthrall. Whether it's celebrities, ballot dumps, we see through their lies and will have no more of their deceptions. The spell is broken. They will not win. They cannot win. And at this point, if you are someone who is thinking, I don't know if I can vote, I don't know if I can, think about the people who've been suffering in North Carolina. Many of them are going to be voting. So if they can get out there and vote, then the rest of us can do the same thing. Now is our time to spread the word, vote early, and of course, keep voting all up until Election Day, depending on where you can in your state, and spread the word about President Trump, because we are ready to turn the page on the evil the Democrats are spreading in this country.
Mike Lindell is such a good guy. He's got a heart of gold, and Mike and MyPillow love giving back to those in need. They sent a truckload of 14,000 MyPillows to those impacted by Hurricane Helene. But even though Mike loves to give back, a large retail store just canceled a huge order that had already left the warehouse. So besides giving to those in need, Mike wants to pass some savings directly on to you. For the first time ever, you can get a standard classic MyPillow for wholesale prices, just $14.88. It gets better. For a limited time, they're offering their entire classic collection at wholesale prices. So get a queen-size MyPillows, $18.88. Upgrade to a king for only $1 more. Get the body pillows for just $29.88, and multi-use MyPillows for $9.88. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code Dinesh, or you can call 800-876-0227. Again, it's 800-876-0227 to take advantage of the wholesale pricing for the first time ever. On top of that, get free shipping on orders over $75. The deals haven't been offered this low before. So once again, go to mypillow.com, use promo code Dinesh, get the standard MyPillow, $14.88, the lowest price ever. By the way, limited quantities at this price, so once they're gone, they're gone. There is a lot at stake in the upcoming election, but regardless of who's sitting in the White House, the fuse on the economy has already been lit. 4 years of a conservative presidency will not be enough to turn the tide on our $35 trillion national debt. And if the left wins, it's like throwing gas on a dumpster fire. You don't have much control over the election's outcome, but you can diversify your savings now by investing in gold from Birch Gold, like Debbie and I have. For millennia, gold has stood firm in the face of greedy governments, economic upheavals, global strife, and it can help protect you now. Birch Gold, my gold company, will help you convert an IRA of 401k into an IRA in physical gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. In the past 4 years, the buying power of the US dollar has declined. The price of gold has increased 40%. Hey, is it a coincidence? I think not. How do you get started? Text Dinesh to 989898. You'll get a free information kit on gold. Just information, nothing to lose. Then talk to Birch Gold. You can trust Birch Gold as I do to protect your savings. Text Dinesh to 989898 today.
I am delighted to welcome to the podcast Graham Allen. He's a former Army Staff Sergeant and served 12 years in combat, including 2 tours during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He's the host of the podcast Dear America, and he is also the creator of Dear America Originals, which we're going to hear a lot more about today. So, Graham, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always funny I forget that that's like what the bio says. And then people start reading, I'm like, is that me? And I'm like, oh yeah, that is. Yeah. I did do that.
Well, I can't forget the Dear America because that's obviously in the background right now. But
Yes. Yes.
just a little personal background with the veteran part is
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. Even my kids, I was in for 12 years, but I got out about the time they don't remember it, which is this weird part to me. It was such a long period of time, and my daughter especially, she has no clue, none whatsoever. She remembers nothing of it. So it's always interesting. Time's relative, things like that.
Yeah, well, you can tell them all the stories from before.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. My son said something that has nothing to do with what we're supposed to talk about. My son said the other day, he was like, "Dad, I hate to break it to you, but you were born in the 1900s," and I was like, I just, it's those moments. It's those moments.
You're
as parents,
like,
you're just
actually, I
like,
don't think so.
well, no, I was. That's the worst part about it. I was born in 1987. And so, you want to be, you just look at them with disgust, but you're like, dang, that's a really good burn, son. That's a good job. But anyway, my life,
No.
I'm not on camera.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sure it's all good things and you're doing all this cool stuff now. So I'm sure you're incredibly busy leading up to the election. I know you were saying before you have a lot of traveling coming up. You've been investigating things. Tell us a little bit about what led you to investigate the hurricane disaster in North Carolina. I think you live in North Carolina, right?
Well, we live in the upstate of South Carolina. And so we got
Okay.
hit as well. Obviously nothing compared to what our friends about 80 miles north in North Carolina got hit. But, we were without power and water and things for about 8-9 days, something like that here. And
Wow.
so, what led to it was first thing we were going to do is, we raised a bunch of money for it. We raised about 50 grand or so across everything to donate, and things like that. But we ended up getting because we were just going to kind of leave it at that, because that's normally what we do. We raise money, we send it to places that we know the money's actually going where it needs to go, and we kind of just keep on rocking and rolling with what we do. My military background, I know that too many people oftentimes can kind of get in the way when things are working the way it's supposed to be working. But then, like many other people, we start hearing all these things about the disaster of the FEMA rollout in North Carolina and things like this. And I don't know. I believe it was day 9 or day 10 after the hurricane. We ended up getting a phone call because we live here in the upstate of South Carolina, and there's a little regional airport here. It's also a major airport. But we learned that in the regional airport, they're running helo operations back and forth between here over into the places in North Carolina that you can't drive to.
Mm.
And we get this phone call. They call my wife first because my wife is way more connected in the community than I am. We have an unmarked building here for the studio. We kind of keep to ourselves. But anyway, next thing I know, my wife's on the phone with one of the pilots that are flying these things back and forth. And next thing I know, my wife's signaling me over. It's like, hey, I really think that you need to jump on this call. And I'm listening to this guy, and you'll see him in the video. His name's Nathaniel, and he's telling me, "Hey, there's something going on here that's not right. There's something happening here in North Carolina that's not okay." And the biggest thing that stuck out to me was they had apparently reached out to all of the big names that you can think of, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and the list goes on. And I said, well, why didn't they, what did they give you a reason why they said no? And he said, well, they claimed that it would be a liability issue for them to come and see what was happening. And so I called my producer. His name's Royce. He lives in Tampa. And I was like, look, man, do you want to come up here and let's see what these guys have to show us, because they want to show us something. And next thing I know, Royce is hopping on an unmarked airplane in Tampa, smuggling supplies along with him. And we meet up, and then that kind of sparked the idea for our first documentary. We do this show every day. But what good is just talking if you can't also go out there and show people? So we had the idea for Dear America Originals, which is this new idea where when something's big enough, we will go out and investigate it. So it's not going to be something where, oh, every week we got to figure out something to go record. It is kind of one of those, pull the lever type things. Hey, I think this is big enough that we need to do more than just talk about it on the show. So what we saw and the days, what we spent 6 days in North Carolina, back and forth, not only just filming, but also serving at the same time. All the way from, you'll see it in the documentary where this old 100-plus-year-old Baptist church, the symbolism, you can't make it up. The Baptist church is at the top of this hill. Old, nobody uses it anymore, 100-plus-year-old Baptist church. And it's overlooking just complete and total decimation of this town called Bat Cave, North Carolina. It's actually called Bat Cave. And the church was built into, we were there unloading things and building essentially a grocery store, because there are people that live in the mountains of this place that there's only one bridge road from the main road to the bridge that goes to the mountain where these people live. The bridge is gone. So these people are literally trapped there, and we captured.
And you were going there to film.
Well, we were going there to serve first and then film after the thing was done. So we would work, and then once the work was done, then we would film a little bit and describe to everybody what we were seeing. So we built this grocery store. We loaded everything in, all this stuff, baby supplies, water, food, everything. And then we show what's going on, and you can see it in the documentary. And then we even see this little bitty red raft in like the river or whatever, that these people are having to climb down the mountain, hop in the raft, paddle across the little river, and then climb back up to get on the main road. And then let's see, where else did we go? We went to Swannanoa, North Carolina, and we met with a lot of pop-up little distribution centers. And the biggest thing that we noticed is we looked high and low, and this was day 10 when we started filming since the hurricane hit. I think that's important for people to understand, is it was day 10 at this point. And one of the things of the video is to show that it is the American people that are putting all this stuff together to help their fellow man out. And then the other thing of the show is the complete lack of any sort of federal authority or any sort of disaster authority that you would assume would be in these places directing and guiding all of this stuff. These are massive outposts of non-perishables, food, hot plates, water, blankets, all you can think of, that it's literally just people. There's even a young lady we talked to. She's a high school teacher, and she just wanted to help, and she just showed up. And the next thing you know, she's in charge of all of this stuff. And it's because it's a bunch of random people that just show up. And we could not find, we did not see a single FEMA representative the entire time we were filming.
Wow. And they were supposed to be there.
Right. And then by day 6, we finally get to this place it's called Pensacola, North Carolina, ironically. And it was by far the worst that I had seen, by far. It's not even close. As you said, I've been to war twice. I've never seen anything like this. It looks, still to this day, we go back there tomorrow, actually, to serve some more. It looks like an atomic bomb went off.
Oh, no.
You think, my truck's got like a 2-foot clearance on it, and you think that you're driving on this super tiny road on the side of the mountain. And then you look and you see the yellow lines and you realize, holy crap, no, this is like just half of the road. Half of the road is gone. And people are literally, I got attached to the military guys, and we are having to grid out where these people live up in the mountains, load up generators and food and stuff into side-by-sides, and we're having to basically fined these people up in the mountains and things like that.
Wow.
By day 6, we heard from the people that are running that organization. They're called AAA Authority. They're a charity organization for crisis response, not associated with FEMA or anything like that. They're just a Christian 501c3 that's there for crisis. They finally get a FEMA representative to show up, and this is day 13, day 14 by this point. 2 weeks. And it's one female, which is also weird. FEMA normally travels in 2. I mean, think about the risk of this stuff. I mean, it's a harrowing
you're going
drive.
to such a disaster zone.
Exactly.
It could be dangerous.
So that's weird. First of all, it was a female. And from what I heard, and this didn't make it in the documentary because they asked for it not to be, but without giving away names of anyone, what they said was this person showed up, looked at what was going on, and basically said, this table's dirty. You guys need to clean this. And apparently somebody there had a me kind of reaction. They threw paper towels and cleaning supplies at him. It was like, well, you can clean it since you're standing there. And the FEMA representative left and hadn't been back since. And so that's what we're dealing with. Everybody, and then also Hurricane Milton hits Florida while we're filming. And this was something that ended up being this big crescendo moment in the documentary, and we didn't mean it to be. Milton hits Florida. Of course, damage was there, but by all accounts, it wasn't as bad as people thought it could have been in Florida. Nothing compared to the devastation in North Carolina. But we noticed, and we showed a Fox News clip of them interviewing the owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the first thing down there, 2 days after Milton was there, FEMA takes over Buccaneers Stadium for huge HQ operation like in Florida and all this stuff, which is great because that's what they're supposed to do. And it just makes you ask the question, why is it not happening in North Carolina? And some people will argue, oh, well, they're in Asheville. Well, that's freaking great because these places that are 20 miles away from Asheville, I just told you, they're having to take rafts to get across a river to get to a road. They don't have cars. What good is FEMA in Asheville, North Carolina? And they're seizing. One of the pilots in the documentary says from firsthand accounts, they're having to call the airports ahead of time to find out if FEMA is there or not, because FEMA is going to confiscate their stuff. And because FEMA wants to put it all in one centralized location. And that all sounds fine and good, except when you realize that you've got Batcave, North Carolina that can't get to you. You've got Pensacola, North Carolina, that you literally have to have an all-terrain vehicle to traverse even remotely getting out of there. And I think people will be two things. I think people will be, their hearts will be full by seeing the love of fellow Americans getting it done. But then you will be angered because we don't go in with FEMA's bad. We go in with the what's actually going on approach. And by the time the documentary is done, it's just under 21 minutes. You're left with the American spirit is not dead, but something is horribly wrong with the government and our government assets that are supposed to be there for us in times of need.
Yeah. And it's so discouraging because in so many ways you think about, these are times when the government should step in because this is a huge disaster. And oftentimes, that funding is put aside for situations like this for FEMA, for disasters. And yet, we've heard that it's been used on illegals and other things where the money's wasted. And so as a result, these people who are suffering, who are Americans in places like North Carolina, they aren't actually getting the help that they need. Do you find that being so near to North Carolina that the situation is still pretty dire, or do you think it's like slowly getting better, or is it not really improving? What's kind of the status there of what you've heard recently?
Asheville's going to be okay, but again, it's the surrounding areas. It's Swannanoa, it's Batcave, it's Pensacola, it's all of these surrounding areas. The answer is it is going to take years. I would say it's going to take 9 to 10 months before any semblance of normal life could even begin to come back. You also have to remember, none of these people have flood insurance. None of them. None of these people have flood insurance. And when you're driving up these mountains and you can literally see where the water came down like a Noah's Ark wave, and you see some houses that have come down and there's literally cabooses of trains inside people's houses and all of this stuff. The answer is, it is dire. It is bad. And the problem is, after about 3 weeks, everybody moves on. Everyone moves on and they forget. Right now, it's dropping into the 20s at night in North Carolina. They got no power. They got no heat. They got no food. They got no water. They got nothing. And so this is something that is going to take years for them to even. We were driving on what looked like cobblestone. And then you go by a house that's on the left side of the river and you realize that their driveway is about 2 feet higher than the road you're on. And you realize that the road used to be up here. And now you're driving on cobblestone and stuff way down here because I can't even be, Pensacola is so bad. I don't even know where someone would start. It's so bad. It almost feels like the only thing these people can do is level it all and try to start over completely if they're able to get some kind of help. So I would say to everybody that wants to know how they can help, these people need money and these people it's getting colder. Okay. This isn't Florida. All right. That North Carolina in the mountains is not Florida. It's already getting 20 something degrees at night right now. And these people are living in tents like on fobs and stuff. And it's getting cold quick. They need generators. They need what's the word? They need kerosene or whatever it is, heaters. They need clothing, and not your clothing that's disgusting that you wouldn't even give to your worst enemy too. That's something else we're seeing. Like, these people, give these people some dignity, man. Like, you know what I mean? Give these people some dignity. If you're going to donate some stuff, make sure you're not donating the worst of what you have to these people that, help them have some dignity to something that is not their fault. And I'll tell you another thing. And this is, you can see this in the documentary. You can make your own conclusions. Everybody keeps asking, well, why? Why is this happening in North Carolina? And this is what I can tell you from first-hand account. I did not see in any of the areas we were, I did not see a single Kamala Harris sign. But you know what I saw on these decimated homes, these decimated lands? I saw Trump signs. I saw Trump signs everywhere, and it makes you wonder who benefits the most from tens of thousands of Americans not voting in North Carolina. And, you can draw your own conclusions there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is sickening and sad to think about. And I have to think that they have to be doing something about this because, I mean, I think Michael Watley, who's running the RNC, is from North Carolina. I think there are people who are thinking about this issue in North Carolina, and obviously there's the humanitarian crisis separate from election goals. But obviously these people, like you said, they need our help. They need items. They need things. But it is just heartbreaking to see. Well, Graham, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Make sure you check out the documentary. Make sure you check out the Dear America originals. And Graham, thanks so much again.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I want you to order Balance of Nature fruits and veggies in a capsule. But before you do that, wait till you hear what I have to say. If you go to balanceofnature.com, you'll check out these. This is their popular fruit and veggie supplements, fruit and veggies in a capsule. But you might see a discount offer pop up. It may say 20% or 25% off your first order. Well, don't click that. Why? Because if you use my promo code, you'll get 35% off your first order plus free shipping. The special code is simply the word America. Use the code and save big. Here's another bonus. Balance of Nature has a risk-free money-back guarantee. So go ahead and find out for yourself what I already know. There's no other product out there like Balance of Nature when it comes to fruit and veggie supplements. Whether you order online or call direct, you got to use promo code America to get the special offer, 35% off and free shipping. Here's the number to call, 800-246-8751. Again, 800-246-8751, or go to balanceofnature.com. When you use discount code America, you get 35% off and free shipping. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing ShareRight. It's healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. Forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. So think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. Empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh. That's shareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way.
I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast Pat Harrigan. He's the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress from North Carolina's 10th Congressional District. He's a graduate of West Point, a former Green Beret, and a business owner. Pat, thanks for joining us.
Danielle, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. That was a great introduction.
Oh my goodness, you're so sweet. Well, I feel like whenever I'm introducing, the congressman titles, I'm like, I don't want to mess up the exact wording because it all makes a big difference, So I'm like, okay, let me make sure I get everything right.
I'm not
that's so
the type
exciting.
that cares, but you did a great job.
Well, congratulations on winning, the Republican nomination. That's super exciting. And you have election day coming up very soon. So tell us a little bit about, where is your district located in North Carolina, also in relation to being affected by the hurricane?
Yeah, sure thing. So the 10th District in North Carolina is actually shifting a little bit from its current footprint because we had redistricting this past year. But the new 10th District, the one that I'll be representing, runs 5 counties in kind of central western North Carolina. And so if you can kind of think of just north of Charlotte in the Mooresville area, which has now kind of become a cottage community of Charlotte, about 30, 45 minutes north. And it runs all the way up to Winston-Salem, which a lot of people know, very old historic city in our state. And then it runs all the way west out to Hickory and Lincolnton, North Carolina, passing through Yadkin County. So it's a great district. It's fairly compact, a little over 750,000 people, and sits kind of northwest of Charlotte, and is kind of the area that was affected by the storm, but not so affected that we couldn't really stage all of the rescue and recovery operations out of our counties. We were able to do that, thankfully. So we had to deal with some minor power outages, some significant damages due to trees and falling limbs. Had a little bit of flooding, particularly with some of our farmers, but we were not as hit as hard as the folks at the most extreme portion of Western North Carolina, which was truly devastating for them.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. It's interesting because there's so many things to dive into with the hurricane, but I guess a couple questions.
Sure.
One is, what do you think has been the response so far from FEMA? What has been the response as far as getting relief to people affected by the hurricane? Do you feel like you have some intel of observing that there? How are things going as far as people being affected by it?
Yeah, so as I had just mentioned, Western North Carolina got wrecked by this storm. This was a very significant event that nobody in North Carolina has ever seen before, made more complex by the terrain in which it occurred, right? You're dealing in the mountains. Most of the time when we think of hurricane and hurricane relief, we're thinking about flatland along the coast. That was not the case for this particular hurricane, which, in the preceding 24 hours before the hurricane came, the storm ahead of it had dropped 11 inches of rain in western North Carolina. And so by the time that hurricane came, which everybody thought was going to, be a Category 3 that reduced down to a Category 2 at landfall, actually was a Category 3 that increased into a Category 4. So when that brought with it more rain and up to another 2 feet worth of rain, and paired with it, by the time it got to us in North Carolina, sustained 70-mile-an-hour winds, it was just a recipe for disaster. And so we ended up having some waterways that traditionally have 200 cubic feet per second in terms of a flow. They actually went up to and even exceeded 200,000 cubic feet per second. So 1,000 times the amount of water that usually goes through somewhere. So you can imagine what that did to Western North Carolina. It was truly horrific. And to get to your question specifically, look, I think everybody at this point knows and understands that the federal government's response was a day late and a dollar short here in Western North Carolina. And I was very fortunate to be included in the effort of a bunch of civilian aviators to really create the largest civilian airlift that has ever happened in this country's history, to really do what the federal government was not doing, which was very unfortunate, but it was also an incredible experience. And we were able to do a ton of really amazing work with some super motivated folks out of 3 counties in my district that just stepped up and did an incredible service to their fellow North Carolinians.
Wow. Well, that is amazing. So many great people have been stepping up and people have been helping, which has been essential because, like you said, we can't expect that the government is going to fix things there, because I think a lot of the time it's these Christian organizations, it's people who are saying, I'm going to donate or go there or whatever it is to help people. Tell us a little bit about how you think this affects the election and voting coming up, because I've heard that many areas affected are Trump counties, that some of the areas that are very, very affected, what will it be like for them to have the ability to vote there? Do you have any concerns about kind of the voting process as far as areas affected by the hurricane in North Carolina?
Yeah, let me give you kind of, I think, the official answer, and then let me give you my personal opinion. I think they're two slightly different things, right? I think on the official side, we are rightfully concerned at people's ability to go vote in this particular election. I mean, we've got over 8,000 homes in Western North Carolina that have been completely destroyed. Many, many more than that, and families have been displaced. They are not able to operate with any sense of normalcy. Although power is starting to come back and cellular service is starting to come back, Western North Carolina has a long way to go to actually dig themselves out of this storm. And some communities are truly, from my perspective, going to take a year, if not longer, to recover. And some of them might not recover, given the experience that they have had. And so the North Carolina General Assembly pulled about $278 million in the week after the storm from our emergency fund that we have in the state, and pushed that money specifically into where it is needed most in Western North Carolina. A portion of that funding actually went to the various boards of elections in the affected counties to effectively give them the ability to do what they thought was necessary in order to make sure that the people of Western North Carolina have access to vote, can actually go have their voice heard at the ballot box. And so there's a number of different initiatives that between state representatives and local offices within the boards of elections that they are taking to ensure that that happens. My personal opinion, the folks in Western North Carolina will crawl over broken glass to go vote after their experience in this hurricane and effectively being out there on their own and being incredibly frustrated with the lack of federal government response. I don't think there's anything that will stop these folks from voting. And that is just based on my personal experience in the week and a half or so that we were running aerial missions into Western North Carolina, helping with the evacuation, the rescues, and then follow on with providing supplies and provisions. and just talking to folks. They're frustrated.
Right.
They are upset, and they are not going to forget this. So my
Yeah.
opinion, they're going to go vote.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the phrase of the Trump supporters, they'd walk on broken glass for President Trump, it's like that is becoming literal. That is a
Yes.
literal situation now,
Yeah.
as opposed to the millions of diehard fans he has all over the country. Well, these people, they're very committed. They are the most committed. And I think in many ways it just shows how President Trump, I mean, he really does have that power. He has that pull. If this was a midterm election or some other time when he wasn't on the ballot, then I don't know if everyone would necessarily go through that. And you can't really blame them because I mean, they are personally probably suffering themselves. But yeah, I mean, people just they love President Trump so much. Well, that is good to hear, Pat. I am very happy that people are going to be in good hands in your area with you working on this. But tell us a little bit about your race. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to want to run for U.S. Congress.
Yeah. So I had actually no political involvement whatsoever until the fall of Afghanistan occurred. And as a former special operator, Green Beret, who's deployed to Afghanistan twice, I really could not comprehend how we had a chief executive in this country who watched the fall of Vietnam happen. It wasn't his fault, but he was there as a young politician and watched the chaos that caused, not just internally for the United States, but for the free world. And then somehow allowed the exact same thing to happen 50 years later, seemingly having learned nothing. But allowing that to happen while he was commander in chief and chief executive of this country was truly something that I saw as unconscionable. I really thought it was criminal. And as someone who really cares about this country, everything that I've invested, that my friends, both in all services of the military, but taxpayers back here, we all invest, right? We invest our time, we invest our money. Some of us truly invest blood in driving positive outcomes for this country, and to have such failed leadership that's leading us down the road to failed outcomes that is not just isolated to Afghanistan. Unfortunately, we see those failed outcomes cascading across our entire society and across the entire world. I've got two little girls, and at the end of the day, my wife and I just sat back and we said, you know what? We just don't want to be part of the first generation of Americans that leaves less opportunity to the next generation of Americans, specifically for our daughters, but everyone's kids and grandkids are included in that. And we should do something about that. So here we are, and we ran for Congress, and God willing, we're going to get across the finish line just like your husband. And honestly, I can't wait to serve with him in Washington. He's a good egg. I'm really impressed by him, and it's going to be a lot of fun as we go up there to change this country.
Yeah, well, wow, that is just so encouraging. I mean, in so many ways, I feel like the people who are probably going to take the most action in North Carolina are going to be people who are veterans and people who are like, I know what to do in a crisis like this, because sometimes, it's people who have seen really difficult things like that who can step up in those situations. But no, for sure. I mean, Brandon is so excited. I'm sure that you guys are going to get so many things done this next year, and there's a lot to get done. So there's going to be a lot to work on. Let's just say. Well, Pat, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us, and good luck in these next couple weeks with the race.
Danielle, thanks for giving me the opportunity. Please give my very best to Brandon and Dinesh, and my very best to you all.
Thank you, and our best to your family as well.
Hey, thank you. Y'all take care.
Well, I am delighted to welcome to the podcast Addison McDowell, one of our dear friends. He is the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress from North Carolina's 6th Congressional District. Addison, thanks for joining us.
Of course, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, first of all, I wanted to congratulate you on your big win. That's so exciting. And I mean, gosh, Election Day is right around the corner. So what are some of the biggest things that you're going to be focusing on these next couple of weeks leading up to the election? And obviously, of course, being in North Carolina, how are you doing? How are things going in your district as far as the hurricane?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the next 3 weeks, we've got one toss-up race in our state. We don't have none of the senators are running again. So it's president and then the House, and so we've got one toss-up, and so we're really focused on that race and making sure that we can flip that seat that has been held by Democrats for I think it's like 130 something odd years. And this is a great chance we have to flip it. And so we've been doing a lot to help. Laurie Buckout is her name, who's running down there, but also anything we can do to help President Trump get across the finish line and take North Carolina for a third time, we're going to do.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well, what were some of the reasons that you decided to run for Congress? What were some of the
Yeah.
issues that were most pressing to you and inspiring you to do that?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, the border was such a big issue. I lost my little brother to a fentanyl overdose in 2016. And so that, and seeing what, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris have done, and just the disrespect that they show through what they've done with our border for families like mine who have had to deal with the consequences of an open border. And so wanting to run to be somebody that would have President Trump's back on securing our border, that was the biggest reason. But also, I just love where I'm from. I love the people that live here. I love this district, and I think that it's important that we have good, energetic people in office. And so I threw my name in the ring, but the border was the number one issue for me.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I saw on your website you are a big supporter of the Second Amendment, and I also see your background. You have some great, taxidermy, some animals up there. So, are you a big hunter? Are you a big Second Amendment person?
Absolutely. Not so much like Tim Walz, who poses for pictures. I actually use my guns and hunt with them. But yeah, so I didn't really grow up hunting, but got into it, right after high school, and have just fallen in love with it. Running for Congress kind of makes that complicated. You're kind of busy. And so I won't have as much time to do that now. But, I think what we see with politicians now is that you see a lot of people that, they pose for pictures with guns, but they're not actually people that are gun people. And the Second Amendment's important to me. It's a constitutional right, and we need to protect it. And the left is trying to take it away from us. And so, obviously it's something I care about. But it's something that's under attack, and it always will be. And we need people that are going to fight for it.
Absolutely. And as far as in North Carolina, how are things looking, would you say, overall, as far as President Trump and the election coming up? I know that, like you said, he's won North Carolina. Do you feel pretty strong about North Carolina?
I feel really good. Yeah. I mean, President Trump, he is beloved here. I remember in 2016, nobody thought he was going to win. All the experts said, he's just going to lose. And when I went to vote, and I saw the line of people wearing a, Make America Great Again hat or a T-shirt with Trump on it, I knew like this is different. When I went with my parents for them to vote, you never saw George Bush have a line of people like that. And there was something different, and that enthusiasm has not gone away. You look at his rallies that he holds here. They're packed out. There's 15,000 people outside. You hear Senator Vance came to the race, the NASCAR race in Charlotte this weekend. And, I've heard the roar of that crowd when President Trump comes or when Senator Vance comes, and the energy is unbelievable. I think if you look at it on every issue, President Trump wins on every issue. And I think that North Carolina voters are intelligent, and they've had enough of the high grocery prices, the high gas prices. And they're ready for what we had 4 years ago, which was economic prosperity. They're going to reject Kamala Harris because she's the exact same as Joe Biden, and she's told us that.
Yeah, absolutely. Won't it be so much fun to say, Vice President Vance instead of Vice President Kamala or, whatever she is currently? Because, I think people are just so ready for a change. They're ready for something new. And I think JD Vance really does bring that. futuristic vision as well to the ticket. So it's very exciting. Well,
Absolutely.
Addison, thank you so much for joining us. I really
Of course.
appreciate it.
You
And
got
I'm
it.
super excited about your race and upcoming win there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I really appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up today's show. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, True Social, all the places. I'm Danielle D'Souza Gill. Would love to stay in touch with you guys there. This has been such a great week. So thanks for staying with me, and I will see you all sometime soon. MAGA.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.